Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Kendra and this is my very first true crime video. So if you end up liking this video, hit the subscribe button and the like button. Let's get into it. Okay, so today's case that we're going to be talking about, you might have heard of, and you might have seen the case aired on True Crime Daily. That's actually how I heard of the case. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Lauren Taylor Agee. Lauren was 21 years old, born on August 19th, 1993 in Biloxi, Mississippi to Brian Agee and Sherry Anderson. Lauren was known to be a sweet spirit as a child. She had an infectious energy, enchanted smile, disarming dimples. She was just very energetic as a young girl. As Lauren got older, she was extremely beautiful. She stood out in a crowd. Her mom even says that everyone to her was her bestie. Anybody that she became friends with, she was like this with them. She took their friendship very serious. She was always making people laugh, but yet had a spicy personality. She never hesitated to tell you how she felt when she felt it, and she always stuck up for people even if she didn't know them. Her favorite color was purple and loved the saying, just breathe. Anytime anyone around her was stressed out about anything, she would always say, hey, just breathe. Breathe was her word that she always said. She loved it so much that she even had it tattooed on her forearm right here. Lauren was very competitive and really good at sports. She was always winning first place ribbons and trophies. Her passion was singing and dancing. She was known to always have her blinged out Beats by Dre headphones in, jamming out to her favorite artist, Drake. She loved dancing so much that she was part of the award-winning Hendersonville Golden Girls dance team for 4 years. She even received a dance scholarship to Bethel University, but turned it down to transfer to Vol State Community College in Hendersonville, Tennessee, to study criminal justice. Lauren lived with her mother, Sherry, and her stepfather, Michael Smith. Her and her mom were extremely close. She was in her second year of college. Everything for her seemed to be going on track. She even had a boyfriend named Chase, whom she referred to as the one. So one day Lauren tells her mom that she's going to be heading out of town with some friends and that she's going to be going to an event called Wake Fest. She told her that she'd be staying in a cabin with friends, that it would only be for overnight. She said she'll be leaving Friday and coming back Saturday because Saturday night her boyfriend and her had plans to attend a party. So for those of you that don't know what Wake Fest is, it's a 3-day event that happens every single year from Friday to Sunday with over 2,000 event goers. It consists of wakeboarding tournaments on Center Hill Lake in Smithville, Tennessee. Everyone camps out in cabins near the marina. During the day, people will hang out. Most will be drinking while watching the pro wakeboarders do flips and tricks in the air, while hanging out in the sun, cooling off in the water, and just all around having a big, huge party. The event wasn't going to be something that Sherry didn't like because everyone would be drinking and just partying on the water, but it's because of the person she was going with, Hannah Palmer. Hannah Palmer wasn't someone that Lauren's mom really liked, and she didn't like who Hannah was known to hang out with. So a little bit about Hannah. Hannah was a friend and a neighbor of Lauren. They've known each other since grade school. They were considered to be best friends. But the thing with Hannah and Lauren is Hannah only hung out with Lauren in between boyfriends. When she didn't have a boyfriend, Lauren was her best friend, always with her. But when she had a boyfriend, Hannah would disappear. Hannah wasn't around anymore. So she only hung out with Lauren when it was convenient for her and when she didn't have a boyfriend. So Lauren's mom trusted Lauren, but she didn't really trust Hannah. Despite how Lauren's mom felt, on Friday, July 24th, 2015, Lauren and Hannah head out for their 2-hour drive to Smithville, Tennessee. They were in Lauren's car with Hannah driving. On the way out of the neighborhood, Lauren spotted her mom. She told Hannah to pull over and she got out real quick, gave her mom a quick hug, said she loved her, and her mom said, be safe. As Sherry watched Lauren get back into the passenger seat, she noticed that Hannah had her face down and she was just not acknowledging Lauren's mom. She didn't say, hey, Miss Sherry, which is what all the kids in the neighborhood, all of Lauren's friends referred to the mom as, Miss Sherry. So she didn't acknowledge her. So she thought that was kind of weird, but she didn't think much of it. And Lauren and Hannah headed out on their drive. So on their car ride, Lauren ends up documenting their whole entire trip, their whole drive. She's posting to social media. They're making humorous videos. She even posted on her social media, "Can't wait for Wakefest." When arriving to Wakefest, Lauren was so excited. She had never been to Wakefest before, and she was just ready to wind down from her school life, adult life, and just enjoy some time with friends. But soon after arriving, Lauren and Hannah met up with Hannah's new boyfriend, Aaron Lilly, and his friend, Chris Stout. So Lauren knew that they would be running into a lot of people that they knew, because a lot of people in their hometown were known to go to this event every single year, but they didn't have anyone specific in mind that they were meeting. So when she realized it wasn't just her and Hannah anymore, it was her, Hannah's boyfriend, and his single friend, she was a bit annoyed. She ignored how she felt and just tried to have a good time. They ended up running into more people that they knew. They continued the day drinking, houseboat hopping, just enjoying their time. So they ended the night at a bar called Fish Lips. This bar is a restaurant as well, floats on the lake. People go there to listen to the live band, have some drinks, hang out, eat, even use the restroom, because a lot of the campers don't have a restroom to use. At this bar, there was an off-duty officer named Chris Yarchuk. Chris Yarchuk was working security at this event, and he says that he actually noticed Lauren because, like I said, she sticks out in a crowd. She is full of energy. He remembers her being in a good mood, dancing to the music, but then he noticed that Lauren didn't seem to match the personality of her friends. Her friends were just sitting in the corner, being kind of boring. The friend Chris was seen flirting with multiple women. He was trying to dance with everybody, even seen caressing a woman's leg. He just seemed to be very flirtatious. Yarchuk also remembers them not spending a lot of money. They weren't really seen with many drinks, or even had a lot of drinks in their hand throughout the night. So that's one thing that he did say, is that they didn't seem to have a lot of money. Lauren approached Yarchuk with excitement, saying, "I'm studying criminal justice," started asking him some questions and sharing some stories. But during their conversation, Lauren noticed her friend Cassie Franks walk in. So she runs up to Cassie and they have a brief conversation. She tells Cassie, "I'm not really having a good time. I'm finding myself being Hannah's wingman, entertaining the friend Chris." Later, Cassie Franks ends up saying in her interview on True Crime Daily that when she saw Lauren, she seemed fine, but the way Lauren looked at Chris was in disgust and seemed extremely annoyed of Chris's presence. Said she tolerated Chris, but she was definitely not into Chris. During Lauren and Cassie's brief conversation, Cassie and Aaron Lilly, Hannah's boyfriend, ends up getting in a brief argument. There is footage of the argument. We'll get into what the argument was actually about later on in this video. Eventually, they decided to end the night and head to their cabin. Lauren then learned that they're not going to be staying in the cabin, but they would be staying at a campsite that Aaron and Chris had set up prior to Hannah and Lauren arriving. Lauren again was annoyed and asked her friend Cassie, "Hey, can I stay with you guys on that houseboat that you're staying on?" And Cassie said, "Unfortunately, there's not enough room." So Lauren was forced to sleep at this campsite with Hannah, Aaron, Chris, and this night their friend Samantha Arnold stayed as well. So in order to get to the campsite, you had to take a canoe across the lake to get to this kind of like island looking thing. I'll actually include a picture here so you can see that. So the cliff stood 90 feet on one side, which is the side that you would hike up, and then 45-foot drop on the opposite side. On top of the campsite, there was a few different campsites with tents, and then there was 3 adult-size hammocks. These aren't your average size hammocks. They do tie tree to tree, and they hang, but it fits 2 to 3 grown adults in them. They are oversized. I know Hannah and Aaron slept in a tent together on top of this cliff, but Lauren was forced to sleep with Chris in one of these hammocks because there was nowhere else to sleep. This hammock that they slept on dangled on top of the water over this cliff. So you can see in one of these pictures that the hammock literally is on top of the water. I don't know why anyone would want to sleep on a hammock like that, especially while drinking during the day and being intoxicated. I don't see why people do this, but hey, they did. And then their friend Samantha Arnold stayed with them at the campsite this particular night, Friday night. Not sure where she slept. I couldn't find any information online. I do know, in fact, Samantha Arnold did stay with them on Friday night. Saturday comes along and they just continue to enjoy the day drinking, watching the tournaments, just having a good time. Lauren was even said to have tried cliff diving for the first time. Her mother does say that she was terrified of heights, so she's not sure what made Lauren want to do this, but she in fact did. During her jump, she hit her head. It was said by some people that she passed out for a few seconds, got up, seemed fine, took an Advil, carried on with the day. Now, I know Lauren planned to head back home this Saturday, but I can't find anything online. I didn't hear anything in the podcast as to why she didn't leave this day. Her and her boyfriend had plans to go to a party, but I can't see why she didn't leave. My opinion is she thought, I'm going to have a few drinks, enjoy the day for a little while, and then head back home, but maybe got too drunk and couldn't drive. Again, I'm just assuming here, so leave your comments about that. If you know, again, comment. I'm curious to know why she didn't actually leave that day. That Saturday night would turn into heavy drinking for most. They hung out at the bar called Fish Lips. They ended up finding themselves on a houseboat that a couple owned. On this houseboat, they spent hours on it. Most of their whole entire night after they left the bar. They hung out, just drank, talked, whatever they did. And Chris actually passed out on the front of this couple's houseboat. And as a thank you or an offering for Chris passing out, their friend Bricks offered a jar of moonshine to the couple. The couple gladly accepted it and said that they weren't upset about Chris passing out. They even offered their houseboat for them, the whole group. The friend Bricks, Aaron, Hannah, Lauren, and Chris to all sleep on their houseboat because there's couches, more than enough room for them to sleep, working toilets. Aaron actually told them no, declined the offer, and said thank you. So the couple assumed that they just wanted to experience the thrill of camping on a cliff, even though they were denying AC, comfortable place to sleep, and working toilets. So they just thought they were like thrill seekers and that they just wanted to experience it. Aaron's friend Bricks was also with them on the houseboat this night and gave the couple a jar of moonshine as a thank you. Sorry for their friend Chris passing out drunk on their boat. 3 a.m. rolls around and Aaron wakes up Chris, guides him to the canoe, and the group heads back to the campsite for the night. The friend Samantha Arnold was not with them this night. She did stay Friday, but not Saturday. While at the campsite, Lauren was upset. She was saying that she wanted to go home, but she was too drunk to drive, and especially too far to drive 2 hours while drinking. The roads were windy, they were dark, definitely shouldn't drink and drive, but you wouldn't want to drink and drive on a road like this. It was a one-way road, very dark, and even a sober person would probably feel uncomfortable driving down this road, especially in this darkness. Hannah took her keys and hid them by a tree so Lauren wouldn't be able to find them while everyone was sleeping. Hannah and Aaron went to bed in their tent, and Lauren and Chris shared that same hammock that they shared on Friday. Sunday morning, July 26, 2015, Hannah, Aaron, and Chris all wake up and don't find Lauren on the campsite anywhere. They don't feel that this is out of the ordinary for Lauren. They weren't really concerned because they thought maybe Lauren woke up earlier than them and maybe headed down the campsite to back to the event, and maybe she even went to the bar Fish Lips. So they head down the cliff, they get in the canoe, cross the water, and they get out of the canoe right next to the houseboat that they were hanging out on the prior night. The couple over the houseboat sees them and says, "Good morning, how did you guys sleep?" and eventually asks, "Hey, where's your friend? Where's the girl that was with you guys?" So Hannah responds with, "I'm not really sure. I think she might have went to the bar or something. Whatever. The couple didn't seem too concerned because Hannah didn't seem too concerned. So the couple tows them in their canoe to the bar Fish Lips that floats on the lake, and the couple goes back to where they were docked while the group goes into Fish Lips. So later that day, the houseboat couple sees Hannah and asks her again, "Hey, did you find your friend?" And Hannah says, "No, I think she might have met someone and went with them on a boat." The woman doesn't think anything again because Hannah didn't seem too concerned. During this time, Sherry, Lauren's mom, was blowing up her phone. She's calling her frantically. She's wondering why she's not answering. She's very concerned because Lauren wasn't the type to be without her phone. She was always posting to social media and just very active on social media. Around 4 p.m. on Sunday, a couple named Harry and Dina, who worked at the marina the event took place, were fishing in their boat and spotted a body. They believed the body was a child floating face down in a cove. The body was found a mile away from where Lauren and her friend's campsite was located. They discreetly alerted authorities immediately. They wanted to be discreet because there was an event going on. They didn't want to cause commotion and chaos. The first to be alerted was the officer that Lauren had approached at Fish Lips Bar that Friday night, Chris Yarchuk. When Yarchuk was alerted that a body had been found, only he, the couple that found the body, and one other officer were the only ones to know, no one else. While he was on his way in his motorized boat to where the body was located, he saw Chris and Aaron hanging out in a canoe near a houseboat nearby. He thought that their behavior was odd because when he rode by, they happened to yell out, "Is that my friend? My friend's missing." The reason why he thought this was odd is because no one else knew that a body had been found. So what made them believe that that was even a body or may have been Lauren or anything? He said it was as if they were sitting in the spot waiting for the body to be found, as if they knew that the body was there. When Yarchuk approached the body, he noticed immediately that it was not a child, but it was indeed an adult. He noticed pink shorts, and he noticed the body was floating face down, which gave him an immediate thought that based on his experience in the field of being an officer, this person did not drown. He said because when people drown due to water in their lungs, the body will sink and not float. So that was a red flag to him and made him very suspicious. They did confirm the body to be Lauren's after they were given Lauren's ID from friends. After pulling Lauren's body out of the water, police noticed injuries that indicated that she was possibly involved in a struggle. They noticed hemorrhaging in her throat, which consists of being held down by the throat. She had symmetrical injuries on her back, consistent with being dragged. She also had severe bruising on different parts of her body, what seemed to be a bite mark on her upper right chest area, a broken nose, and the most mind-boggling part of it all is they found a triangular shape imprint on her upper right chest area between her breastbone, which we'll get into that a little bit later. I'll show some photos as well. During the time of retrieving Lauren's body, Aaron and Chris were anxiously looking over while sitting with an officer named Ryan Melanson. Melanson later stated that Aaron and Chris's behavior and demeanor was not consistent with that of someone who had just been informed of a friend's death and did not express any shock, sympathy, or concern, but instead showed nervousness. While Lauren's body was being transported to the boat dock by police and the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, the DeKalb Sheriff officers were looking over the campsite that Lauren and her friends had stayed. They found Lauren's sandals, they found her cell phone, which was dead at the time, her wallet, her car keys, which her car keys were found outside of the tent that Aaron and Hannah were staying in. I have read that her belongings were by the tent, but then I saw a photo that they were by the hammock that she stayed in, so I'm a little unclear as to which one is more accurate. Where were her belongings? So that's a little confusing there. So they didn't see any evidence while looking over the campsite. Everything appeared to be normal, so they just took a few photos and even allowed Hannah and Aaron to sit in a hammock while waiting to gather their belongings. About 12 hours after Lauren's body was found, Sharon and her husband were notified that Lauren was being transported to a nearby hospital, and they had no further details. They get in their car frantically. They are overwhelmed with the thoughts of what could have happened, what happened, is she okay, is she gonna be okay, is she still with us, and just seem to try to keep their heads up while trying to push that 1 hour drive. Her stepfather Michael said that he must have been going 100 miles plus an hour because he just wanted to get there, and it seemed to take an eternity. He said it was the longest drive he's ever driven. So when they get to the hospital, they sit in a little tiny, what seemed to be waiting room, and 15 minutes goes by and they don't hear anything about anything. They are just wondering why no one's talking to them. They're just wondering what news they're going to be informed with. Another 15 minutes goes by and the detective comes in to give them the news that they've been dreading. He says, "Your daughter didn't make it and she's dead." They drop to their knees in disbelief, and her mother's first words after hearing this terrible news is, "Where are the friends that she was with?" Since she already felt a certain way about Hannah, she just knew, as a mother's first instinct, is Hannah was involved. Lauren's funeral was held on July 31st, 2015 in Hendersonville, Tennessee. It was an open casket. Family and friends shared memories with Lauren, shared their thoughts about Lauren. People would become emotional while speaking, and Lauren's dad would get up there, Brian Agee. He would hold it all together for everyone, grab the mic, try to change the mood, and crack some jokes. Change the mood just for a little while and make people smile again. If you remember in the beginning of my video, I did share with you that Lauren's favorite saying was just breathe. Well, at her funeral, to remember her, they got stamps made that were exactly her tattoo. So it was the same exact copy of her tattoo. So people can stamp the tattoo or stamp it and stamp it on their arm and have it in the same spot Lauren did. So I thought that was pretty cool and very different and a great way to honor her. So Lauren's dad, Brian, kept it together the whole entire funeral. He was trying to make it a good memory for people to remember the good about Lauren and not the tragedy that had happened. He held it all together until the moment came to shovel dirt on top of her casket. He broke down. He lost it and just could not bear the thought of losing her anymore. And same with her mother, Sherry. When it came down to her turn to shovel the pile of dirt on top of her casket, Sherry couldn't do it. If you would like to read more about Lauren's funeral and all the tiny details, I know her sister does keep a blog about her thoughts about Lauren and just the memories of her. So I will link her blog below in my description bar. So if you're interested in reading that, I'll leave that for you. Friday was Lauren's funeral, and this following Sunday, which was 2 days later, Mike and Sherry Smith were leaving a restaurant after eating, still in shock and numb that they lost their daughter. They get a phone call from lead case investigator Jeremy Taylor. Jeremy Taylor asked them to meet up with him within a few days. A few days later, they meet up with lead investigator Jeremy Taylor, and he tells them that in the autopsy, they learned there was a break in Lauren's neck in her vertebrae that would have prevented her from ever being able to walk. Then he says immediately after, it's probably a good thing that Lauren didn't make it. Mike Smith, her stepfather, says, this was incredibly insensitive, and that Sherry would have taken care of Lauren no matter what shape or form she was in as long as she was alive. He then tells private investigator Sheila Wysocki, who the family hired, that he lost all faith in the DeKalb police officials. He says, on day one, they said, we may never find out what happened, as if they gave up on day one. Felt to him as they treated it as an accident since the moment they found her, and that they didn't do anything to prove otherwise. Sheila Wysocki is the private investigator that Sherry Anderson, hired to help her kind of put a push in this case, to get things going or get some information that the police weren't doing on their own. So Sheila Wysocki, the private investigator, stated in a few different interviews and on her own podcast that Lauren had broken fingers, a broken nose, bruising on her thighs, consistent with someone putting their knees there to hold someone down. Also stated that the case was closed due to possible accidental drowning. No DNA tests were ever taken from Lauren's body or anywhere else on the campsite. And when the family asked for a rape kit to be conducted, lead investigator Jeremy Taylor said there is no way that she was sexually assaulted because she had a tampon in. So therefore, there was no chance of her being assaulted, which is extremely bizarre to me. I'm not going to get too into detail with that, but that's false. When a woman is on her menstrual cycle and has something there, it is fully 100% possible to be assaulted. So I'll never understand why he would even say something like that. That seems very unprofessional. And yeah, Chris Stout had an interview. He was claiming to have been intimate with Lauren that first Friday night, but then he took back and said he did not have sex with her because he believed she was on her period. It's a little confusing because the friend Cassie said that she saw Lauren and she didn't seem to be into Chris and seemed a little annoyed of Chris even. And she even had a boyfriend, Chase. What about him? But I'm not saying she could have not cheated. I mean, she could have. I'm not really sure. I know she saw Lauren that Friday. before she allegedly slept with him. So maybe she changed her mind, maybe had way too many drinks and it was a drunk hookup. I'm not really sure. There is a photo of Lauren and Chris sitting on the hammock that they shared together. Could mean that they were interested in each other. Could mean that they were just friends hanging out. But I guess we'll never really know unless someone comes out and shows proof or admits something or something. Also, during Chris's interview, he says that he went to sleep and then woke up and Lauren was gone. When he was asked if the friend Brooks was at the campsite at any point in time, Chris said he had no recollection of him being there, says he believes Friday night and Saturday night, Brooks stayed in a car overnight with a girl named Callie. Saturday night remembers Brooks being on the couple's houseboat, but doesn't remember where Brooks went after that. But he doesn't believe he was at the campsite that night. Sheila, Detective Yarchuk, conducted their own test with a dummy, the same size and weight as Lauren. They tried to reenact how Lauren could have possibly fallen off of this cliff if she were to be drunk, or maybe tried to go use the restroom and slipped and fell. But any way that they pushed and shoved and pulled, this dummy would not land in the water. The dummy did not land in the water. It would be stopped by bushes and or a tree, or it just would not, they couldn't get the body, the reenacting dummy into the water. They did this investigation on multiple areas of this cliff. They also believe that if she would have left her sandals and walked barefooted on her own free will, she would have sustained a lot more injuries to her feet. They believe, due to all the bushes, twigs, and rocks that are on this cliff, there would have been more injuries and cuts. Simple as that. There was no scrapes on her body. There was a little tiny one on her right heel. That was it. The last test that they conducted was placing milk jugs filled with water to see if they would float to the cove that her body was found in. That was unsuccessful. They actually floated away from the cove to a whole different direction. So that was a fail. Detective Yarchuk stated the current that day was floating in the opposite direction from where the body was found, meaning she didn't float there, she must have been put there. He believes that she was put in the cove and didn't float there by herself. So the medical examiner report states that Lauren died of possible drowning even though no water was found in her lungs. Her body had tremendous amount of hemorrhaging, indicating that she received blunt force trauma to her back while still alive, also indicating her injuries were consistent with a fall. Some injuries, especially the throat, could be caused by strangulation, but could not give a definite opinion on the cause of death other than accident. Now, going back to the V-shaped triangular shape on her upper chest area, Lauren's parents, Detective Yarchuk and Sheila Wysocki, believe the triangular shape was possibly from the front of a canoe. The tip of the canoe, they believe that somebody must have placed her body kind of leaning over the canoe to transport her, chest down, and that this mark on the canoe left an imprint. When they expressed their thoughts to the police department on their beliefs, the police wrote a statement saying the mark was imprinted on her body while transporting her body to the boat ramp after being found. Said her body was face down briefly during photos and that the impression is an identical match to the storage locker lid located on their TWRA boat. Now, I've seen multiple YouTube videos that Sheila Wysocki was in. I'll link those below. I can't think of the name offhand. I know it's Lord and Art's YouTube channel. Not really sure how to say that. He is actually the one, if you're familiar with Danielle Halen, he's actually the co-host of her podcast, or their podcast. So if you're familiar with him, it is on his YouTube channel. They completely debunk this theory that the police is trying to make them believe. They put her photo, her actual crime scene photo, on top of the TWRA locker lid, and it doesn't match. There's no possible way. And then they compare it to a canoe, an older kind of style canoe, and just totally debunk it. So go watch that if you want to see how they debunked it, because I thought that was pretty amazing. There's just absolutely no way, in my opinion. So I'll have that linked below. I know Hannah, Chris, and Aaron were all interviewed, and they all pretty much had the same story, that Lauren must have got up in the middle of the night, went to use the restroom, and slipped down the cliff and somehow landed in the water and drowned. Chris has 3 charges of DUIs, and Aaron has a DUI and recent domestic abuse charge filed by his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Franks, the friend that Lauren had ran into at the bar and had gotten into a brief conversation with, and also the one who got in an argument with Aaron. Cassie states that Aaron, during intimacy, would like to choke to the point where she couldn't breathe and would have to forcefully move his hand. Cassie also stated that one night Aaron was extremely intoxicated, and I won't get into the details of exactly what happened or how he physically harmed her. If you want to hear the details from her own voice, it is on the Sheila Wysocki Without Warning podcast. Again, I'll link that below for you. When her and Aaron woke up, he looked at her and noticed that she had severe bruises on her face. He then asked, "Did I do that to you?" Then said he had no recollection of what actually occurred. So he said he was sorry, sweet-talked her, and they moved on from it. Multiple times, friends would notice the bruising on Cassie's face at different times during their relationship, and Cassie would just make up excuses as to why she had him, and she wouldn't put the blame on Aaron. She wouldn't let anyone know that Aaron was the one that actually put these marks on her. No one knew besides her friend, best friend at the time, Samantha Arnold, what was actually going on in their relationship. No one knew that Aaron was physically abusive to Cassie. Only the friend Samantha Arnold knew. In January 2015, which was 6 months prior to Lauren's death, Cassie and Aaron had their last altercation, which ended in violence, and they both ended up going to jail. But soon after court, they ended up seeing each other again on and off in secret, which lasted all the way up until the Friday that everyone headed out to Wakefest. Friday morning, July 24th, again, the first day everyone goes to Wakefest, Cassie wakes up at Aaron's house and they agree not to see each other anymore unless they're drunk or something happened. They agree to stay cool, and because they aren't ready for everyone to know about them yet, they'll just kind of keep it on the low and see each other when they see each other. So before Cassie left, she asked Aaron, "Are you going to Wakefest?" He says yes. And she said, "Are you staying at the same spot that we always stay at?" Because they used to go to Wakefest together when they were a couple. And he said, "Yes, I'll see you there." And they went their separate ways. So throughout the day, Cassie and Aaron were texting each other on and off. When Cassie arrived at Wakefest, she had texted Aaron and noticed that he was already there. She saw from where she was standing on the dock, she could see up at the cliff and noticed that he had a Red Bull flag hanging, which was something that he always did. He always hung up this Red Bull flag. So she knew that he was already there prior to her getting there. She had texted him and told him that the flag looks cool and let him know that she was there. He responded with, "Cool, and I'll see you at the bar later." So later that Friday night, Cassie does see Aaron, but Aaron is with Hannah. That's when Cassie and Aaron get into that brief little argument. I'm not sure exactly what was said. Cassie Franks doesn't really say that in the interview, but I'm sure she called him names or said something or was just really upset that she had just left his house that same morning and he walks into a bar in a new relationship. So I'm sure that kind of pissed her off a little bit, and that's what the argument was about. I'm not quite sure, but in case anyone was wondering, that Friday, or I should say Thursday night that she slept at Aaron's house, they were in fact intimate. She does disclose that on the Sheila Wysocki podcast, which is linked below. He was with Cassie and then he was with Hannah the next night. So that's a little quick rundown of their toxic and complicated relationship. Others that were interviewed was the couple that found Lauren's body. They stated that they had saw Hannah, Chris, and Aaron throughout the day, and that their stories were different. That Hannah didn't see Lauren. She couldn't find her. Lauren was at the cliff. Lauren wasn't at the cliff. She was at the bar. She wasn't at the bar. She got on a boat with a man. She didn't, just all these different stories. So they just didn't know which one to believe. A man named Mike Chambers told Lauren's stepfather the night that they found Lauren's body around 9 p.m. he noticed that there was a campfire on top of the cliff. When her stepfather mentioned this to lead investigator Jeremy Taylor, Jeremy assures him that the Mike Chambers guy did not see this. In fact, there was no possible way that there was a fire up there because it was roped off. There was no one allowed up there. Well, a year later, Mike Smith finds out that there was never any ropes, nothing to keep people from going up there. So anyone and everyone was open to being in this potential crime scene. Lauren's stuff has never been recovered. It never was taken into evidence. Anybody and anyone could have taken anything. I know her sleeping bag was never found. So that's just bizarre that this officer had told them that it was blocked off. No one could get up there the same night that they found Lauren's body. So following up with the case, Lauren's mother, Sherry, filed a civil case lawsuit against Hannah Palmer, Aaron Lilly, Christelle, and Brick Scramble for killed through intentional neglect or reckless act of defendants, along with several affidavits and declarations from multiple people. Hannah declined by using her Fifth Amendment right. The purpose was so that she would not self-incriminate herself directly or indirectly. When answering questions as to what happened, who was present, or the circumstances surrounding the death of Lauren, declining to answer 27 out of 34 allegations and declining to answer 10 out of 14 interrogations, also declining 91 out of 100 responses. But Hannah was eventually dropped from the lawsuit. Her mother is trying to appeal that decision. But Aaron, Chris, and Brick Scramble they remain active on this lawsuit. Hannah and Aaron are now married. They have a daughter living in Florida and have not wanted anything to do with the case. In an interview with a longtime friend of Chris, he says Chris is the life of the party. He's goofy, energetic, and always invited to things. He also says Chris is not a confrontational person. Not a fighter. When drama starts, he's the first to remove himself from the situation. When asked if he thinks Chris is capable of sexually assaulting Lauren, the friend says, "I don't believe that at all. Because Chris has been known to have women chasing him, has never had a problem getting a girl." He then goes on to say Chris would have talked by now if he knew something, especially after finding out about the $10 million lawsuit. Chris has even said that Sherry is trying to ruin my life and I didn't even do anything. He believes if he does know something, that the friend Bricks must have bullied him into not saying something, or somebody must have bullied him into not saying anything, and he was scared for his life. He also told his friend that Bricks gave him the EBGBs, that's the exact word that he used, and said he just didn't like his vibe. He told his friend that when Lauren was not around, he thought she must have ran off, but when he found out that they had found her body dead, his first thought was that Bricks might have had something to do with it. An ex of Hannah's was interviewed and said that he had texted Hannah shortly after Lauren was found and asked what happened, and Hannah never responded, but then one day out of the blue, she texted him and said she missed him and don't get married without her, blah, blah, blah. So he said that was kind of odd. It was around the time that she first moved to Florida or soon before she moved to Florida. He was very unsure of the timeline. He also said that they did have a brief conversation and that he thought he would hear from her again, but he never heard from her. So this ex of Hannah's was the roommate of Lauren's ex-boyfriend, Clint. So Hannah and him would be together, and Lauren and the boyfriend, Clint, they were always together, all four of them. They would hang out at Lauren's house all the time and stay the night. They would go out to bonfires together. They were just always together. He also says that Aaron just doesn't seem like Hannah's type. He is very different and doesn't seem like her type of guy that she would normally date. He believes that Aaron Lilly has Hannah under lock and key. He says if she does know something, it would be a matter of time before she breaks and tells it all. There is also a Facebook page for Lauren's case, and Sheila stated that there was some nasty comments being said on the Facebook page about Lauren, and said that they actually tracked down the IP address, and the IP address came back to the same city and state and even street of Hannah and Aaron where they live. They couldn't pinpoint the exact house, but the same city and state and street that Aaron and Hannah now live in Florida. So, I don't know if it was them, but I mean, is that a little coincidental or... And I know I brought up the name Bricks a few times. Brick Scramble was actually a secret until the 2020 episode aired, and the houseboat owners, the couple, actually called Sheila Wysocki and told them, hey, I hear all these names being mentioned except that one guy Bricks that was with them. So this couple actually made Sheila Wysocki aware that there was even another person in this group, and no one's really sure why Hannah or Aaron or Chris ever brought the name Bricks up. It was like Bricks never even existed. Lauren's father, Brian, was interviewed, and him being a fisherman, he pulled data himself from the day, and he has also talked to other fishermen who are around that area the same day that this tragedy happened, and it could not have been possible for her to be found where she was found. He believes from the data that the current was flowing in the direction towards the dam and not towards the cove that her body was found in. Stepfather Mike agrees with this and says that the currents were indeed moving into the opposite direction of where the body was found and towards the dam. He says, and I quote, "Science proves it wasn't an accident," end quote. So Sherry's also interviewed, and she said that a few days later, after Lauren died, she was sitting in her room and she randomly got a knock on the door, and it was Bricks Scramble. Bricks Scramble says, "Hi, my name's Bricks. I'm a friend of your son. I was actually at the event Wakefest with where Lauren was," and blah, blah, blah. Asked all these questions. What happened? Do you guys know anything? Just asking all these weird questions. And I say weird because that's what Sherry called it. Weird questions. Just out of the ordinary. Who are you? Is what she felt like. So she thought that was kind of weird. And she's never seen him before or even talked to him before, so it was just weird that he was coming to her house at such a sensitive time, an emotional time in her life. That is all I have on this case. There is a little bit of other details. The ex-boyfriend, Clint, of Lauren's was at the Wakefest event, but they didn't have any contact. He had a new girlfriend. Lauren did try to approach him, but there was no contact. That's all the details that I left out. The family just wants this case to be fully investigated properly. I just want to make videos of true crime to help spread awareness on things, to help you be more educated, just to learn some information from these cases, to know what not to do, or to not put yourself in bad situations or with people that you don't really fully trust or know, especially drinking. Maybe she thought she could trust Hannah. I don't know. I wouldn't really fully trust her because it's such an on and off friendship and she picks guys over her. I don't know. If you have any information on this case of Lauren Taylor Agee, I will leave all the contact information below. Please keep it respectful and treat it as a case that you would for your family. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and my next video should be on Sierra Lamar. That is another interesting case to me, and I don't see a lot of information about that online. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one.